Hey there, and welcome to the first episode of OwlTowel's Gaming Thrifts. Now, as you can see right here, I have a pretty big collection of games, and quite a lot of these games actually came from charity shops. I thought it'd be interesting to have a look at the charity shops around me and see what gaming stuff that we can find. Right off the bat, I have to give credit to Lazy Game Reviews. He has a series called LGR Thrifts, where he has a look around the Goodwill shops around him to see what interesting things he can find, so obviously credit to him for that. And I would highly recommend watching those videos and his videos in general, because they're very, very good. Now, I was originally going to do this with a pair of camera glasses, but unfortunately they kind of conked out on me, so we're going to have to resort to good old-fashioned photography. And sadly, not even with a camera like that, I'll be using the one on my phone because, I want to be discreet and not get in people's way. Now, even though I live in Weymouth, this first episode has actually been done in Bristol. I went back there to visit family and such, so I thought, why not just have a quick look around the charity shops, see what interesting things we can find. We're going to start off in Bristol city centre, because that's where I got off the train, and then we're going to go to Kingswood High Street, which is where I actually grew up. Poor me. So right off the bat, I had a quick look in Thrifts and St Peter's Hospice, and unfortunately neither of them had anything interesting. Next I went to the British Heart Foundation, and it's one of their bigger furniture and electrical stores. And right off the bat they have this big cabinet full of games. Normally you go into one of these charity shops and they're just shoved on a shelf somewhere, so it's not very often to actually see them in one of these glass display cases. They had a copy of Guitar Hero Live, which I don't think that game sold particularly well, and I don't think anyone's really going to pay £13 for that, to be honest. And right behind it they had a copy of Sonic Rivals for the PSP. It was £8, which I thought was a little bit steep, but actually they're selling it for the same price at Keck, so I'm guessing here they've tried to price match a lot of these games, which is fair enough, It's money for charity at the end of the day, but sadly a skinflint like me isn't willing to pay that. And of course, they had to have at least one copy of FIFA. Most British charity shops have at least one copy of FIFA, it's like a rite of passage. And it's a little bit hard to see since it's got stuff on top of it, but they did have a copy of Sonic Heroes for sale for £5. That game ain't worth £5 to be honest, it's not very good. And below that is a copy of Shadow the Hedgehog, which the less said about that game the better, I think. And next up is the YMCA inside the galleries. This shop was a bit of a surprise because it didn't used to be a YMCA, at least the last time I've been here, over a year ago. It used to be like a discount food and homeware shop, so at some point it must have obviously changed. And of course, they had to have a few copies of FIFA. And they also had a copy of Doom, which I've just noticed, which that might actually be worth something. And I love the fact that they have a game that's literally just called Maze. Not 3D Maze, not Pac-Man Maze, just Maze. A complete lack of creativity. And I thought I'd just point this out, they actually had an arcade in the galleries, which was not there the last time I went. So you can see right here they got like a copy of the Simpsons arcade game, Defender, one of the Street Fighters. Sadly it was closed when I went, and I don't know if that's like a permanent thing or not. I don't know if these games are like reproductions or the original units, but I thought it was quite cool just to point these out. Arcades aren't really a thing here in the UK anymore. Apparently there's still like a bunch in the Isle of Wight, but that's it really. And that's it for Bristol City Centre. Not a lot of charity shops there to be honest, so we're going to go to Kingswood High Street next. First up is a Sue Rider, and they have this connect to TV cricket game. So you plug it into your TV and you can play what I'm assuming is very mediocre motion control cricket. But yeah, I've never seen anything like this before. Like I've seen plug and play games, but I've not seen like one based on like a particular sport. Normally it's based on like a franchise or a IP of some sort. Now Vinny from Vinesauce does a lot of these streams where he does these plug and play games, so I imagine if he saw one of these he definitely would want to cover it. I did do a little bit of research on this and I actually managed to find a manual, and according to the bottom of the manual it's copyright 2006, which is not necessarily the year that it came out, but I thought that was interesting because that's the same year the Wii came out. So I'm wondering if this thing was meant to sort of try and ride on the popularity of the Wii. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting sort of thing to find, not sort of typical thing you would find in charity shops here. I also found a very blurry photo of a Wingman Extreme Digital. Don't worry, I took a second photo from the side. It seems to be like a flight stick controller for like Windows 95 games and around that sort of era. I didn't buy it because to be honest I don't really collect retro PC stuff. This is the sort of thing that Clint from Later Game Reviews would easily pick up. And considering it was only like £5, that to me is a bit of a steal considering how expensive they are online. But yeah, it's an interesting item, and this is the reason why I like going around these charity shops, just to find these odd things now and then. And I have to sadly say the video has peaked around here because everything after this is a little bit naff. Next up is St Peter's Hospice shop for patients, families in Bristol, just Bristol, nowhere else. You can all get stuffed. And look, more copies of FIFA in this really badly taken photo. I really need to stop using the auto settings on my phone's camera. Or at least take another photo. And up next is Age UK, and sadly they didn't really have anything, so we're going to move on. And up next is the St Peter's Hospice clearance shop. Basically if something doesn't sell in the other shop I think it ends up in here for cheaper. And they have these absolutely lovely owl plates. I know they're not gaming related, but I had to point them out, they are absolutely lovely. I didn't buy them because to be honest I just don't really have the room for them. They also have this lovely figurine of an owl lumberjack, because sadly Even owls have bills to pay. Next up is the Salvation Army, and sadly they were closed. The thing is, the sign on the door says they close at 3 o'clock, and I arrived there 10 minutes before, so they must have just closed early that day, which is unfortunate, but what can you do? Anyway, next up is the PDSA, whose logo looks like a hot dog. Not much here sadly, just like a random collection of PC games, Mahjong Masters and Rugby 2001. Oh, aren't we lucky. They did have a copy of Unreal Tournament 2004 and one of the Sims expansion packs, and most importantly, a copy of Mrs. Brown's Boys the movie, the most embarrassing movie ever made. And last but not least, the British Heart Foundation Home and Furniture Store. Just like the one in City Centre, although I think this one's a little bit smaller. And oh my goodness, would you look at this. 13 copies of FIFA on one shelf. These games are honestly like a cancer, they just won't stop spreading. And the thing is, I'm very doubtful that many people buy them. And here's the thing, I've worked in charity shops in the past. In fact, most of the charity shops in this video from Kingswood I've done voluntary work for. If something doesn't sell within a certain amount of time, they end up just chucking it or recycling it, so most of these games are probably going to end up in the bin in some way or form. And of course, I found another copy in the same store, because why not? And they had a copy of Black and White, which I'm pretty sure was developed by Michael Jackson. They also had a copy of Wii Fit for sale. If you look at the sticker at the top right hand corner, sorry the photo's not very good, it said £0, and I thought maybe they're giving this away for free, but the reality is somebody's probably mucked up on the sticker. It's probably worth about £10, I'd imagine. Now this really threw me off. It's a physical copy of Gardenscapes. Now you might be wondering, what's Gardenscapes? Well, let me read you this headline to a BBC News article. Homescapes and Gardenscapes ads banned as misleading. Basically some time ago, a bunch of mobile phone game ads got banned in the UK, and one of them was Gardenscapes. But yeah, I never knew that this game actually got a physical release, and according to Amazon, it was released in like 2010, so this is quite old now. But yeah, seeing this game was kind of surreal, and I kind of, in hindsight, wish I bought it. I mean, it was only 50p, but to be honest, buying it would have been kind of embarrassing. I would have ended up being the biggest loser buying this. Now, I did have a look in a few other shops. None of these are charity shops, to be clear, but I thought I would just have a look anyway. This is Game Scene. I have some good memories from this store. My PS2 came from here, my Nintendo Wii, among loads of other games over the years. And I noticed that they had a copy of Sonic Jam for the Saturn for sale, $34.99, which I think is a fair price for it. I didn't buy it because, to be honest, I'm too much of a skinflint, but I thought that was really cool. You don't tend to see a lot of Saturn stuff, and especially the more worthwhile stuff like that. I had a quick look in Kex as well, and they had a lot of retro games, and I actually ended up buying this copy of Altered Beast for the Master System for £4, which, yeah, I don't own a lot of Master System games, so if I can find any decent ones for cheap, I will buy them. And finally, we have cash converters. I bought a lot of good things from here over the years. My Dreamcast came from here, my Super Nintendo, lots of other things, and they had nothing. Normally they have a good little collection of retro stuff, and sadly, nothing interesting. But that's it for today's episode. I only ended up buying one thing, but since it didn't come from a charity shop, it doesn't really count. So we'll have to wait until next time when we have a look around Weymouth High Street, see what interesting things we can find. I already know because I've already taken the photos, but you'll have to wait. So until next time, this was a waste of time.